Hey, it's Joe Glines, the automator, and another episode of What We Automated this week. Now, I've already got my tool open this time, and I've bumped up the DPI so it's easier to see. Here, we were doing some work with this reporting for biofeedback. All this is all client work here, just saved in different spots for different reasons. But we're automating a report for a client. It's going to save their customers a lot of time and kind of introduce them to automation to get them to be interested. So we're not automating everything for their customers, just one thing to kind of tease them. Jeff's been doing a lot of stuff with his tool as Ace works in the afternoons with him with automating LinkedIn and HubSpot and a couple other places. And then Danny's been going crazy. Danny's a radiologist. He's been using AI a lot. And one thing that Ace actually mentioned to me I thought was really interesting. I think he's using the 4.0 object model from ChatGPT, and it was running, and it was taking like 20 seconds or so, because that's the one that does the deep thought. Like after you ask it a question, it kind of goes through and says, "Hey, is this right?" It questions itself. But it was taking a long time. So Danny's like, "Hey, how do we force this to be faster?" And Isaac's like, "Yeah, that's not a parameter that we can add." And so Danny just added to his prompt, "Make sure that this gets done in less than 15 seconds. I forget the time he said. And sure enough, it actually impacted his queries. They started behaving and going faster. So that was really interesting that he thought about throwing that in there. And he just gets into, AI, we just don't know all the ins and outs of it at the now, right? Because it's going to react how it kind of thinks it should. So anyway, he's been doing a lot of stuff with this. We also he signed up for Claude because I was showing him in that video I shared the other day on how to use Claude to write better prompts, because it will flesh out prompts for you. And so I guess he really liked that. And he signed up for Claude. Claude is great, especially for AutoHotkey V2. So these are all Danny's stuff. Lots of different things. And he's just, I think, incorporating new libraries and using our OCR with AI. That one, we haven't... and as his power was out, now he just messages me he's back. Let me be joining in a few. Yeah, so I'll join over with him in a minute. And these are just libraries here. We were did some cool stuff with the WinRT thing, which I don't think at the moment that's going to go anywhere. Fortunately, it's just too complicated. We don't have time. Cameron has a list. He's another radiologist. He has a list of thousands of things that he wants to automate in the sense of commands. And we had solved it with Stream Deck. Instead of Stream Deck passing a hotkey that AutoHotkey watches for, what we're doing is we pass a function. We use a function to pass a parameter to AutoHotkey. And that way we can have one script and press different things, and it will do different things inside that script. And so we'll make a video on that at some point, because Isaiah couldn't remember how we actually did it, and he was struggling to figure it out, and I was unfortunately playing Star Wars with my wife. But when I came back, I had a button on my Stream Deck to show how to do it, so we'll do a video on that, because it's not straightforward. Like, it's really surprising how Isaiah and I think solved it together, but it was on my Stream Deck, and he didn't have his handy, so he didn't have a way to pull it up. But yeah, Cameron's doing a lot of cool stuff with using a Stream Deck to automate things. Apparently with fine text too, so he's using NUIA, cool, PowerScribe. Alright, now we get into this AI audio transcribe. That tool, it was one of those really eye-openers of how I was watching I attended a seminar on artificial intelligence, and one of the things he said really struck me as something very, very important to realize. He said, most people, when you ask them, hey, are you using AI, using artificial, oh yeah, I've used a chatbot. The chatbot, even though it's really powerful and that you can continue a conversation with your thing and go deep on stuff and is very knowledgeable, it is phenomenal. But it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? AI is so much more than that. And this AI with OCR tool really got me thinking about it, because what we're doing is, first we used AI to do the OCR, did amazing. If you haven't seen that video, it's really powerful. But it got me thinking about, okay, well, what else could we have it do? And I started thinking, like, hey, if the weights that are detected are in kilograms and we want pounds, let's have the AI convert it, right? Anywhere it finds it. Or if it's Fahrenheit and you want it in Celsius, have it convert it for you. Or if you find a timestamp that's in Pacific time and you want it your time zone, have it convert it for you, right? And that's what really kind of broke me out of the mold of thinking about AI much more of really the raw intelligence that you can do, right? Because we are right now doing, when I was first thinking about using AI to automate my computer, I wasn't thinking about it the way computer use does with Anthropic, right? Where it's not telling it exactly what to do, it's giving it rough directions. So it's like a fuzzy match, right? You give it rough directions and it will figure out how to solve it. Usually with AutoHotkey, we have to go into, here's how you do this action. And so when we were applying AI, we were trying to get AI to do that action and say, okay, now just do this for me. But when you have very structured data, AutoHotkey is amazing. And that's another really important point, is sometimes you shouldn't be using AI. If you have structured data, you should write a program that says, hey, if this happens, do that. If that happens, do that, right? You shouldn't be using AI to solve those things. One is it costs money, but two is who knows what it'll do, right? Sometimes it does it wrong, and logic is, best to do those kind of things. But when you don't have a clear path, right? I don't know this date is going to be right here, and I don't know exactly how they're going to word it. That's where, even though, and one of our clients did some really crazy stuff with regular expressions, but he's like, I still can't, it's just too complicated of a pattern to figure it out. Well, that's where AI excels at, right? So there's structured data, which AutoHotkey is great at. Then the opposite end of that is very unstructured data, and that's what AI is really great at. So when you start thinking about how and when you should use AI, that's one way to think about it, is when you have very structured data, AutoHotkey is usually, and you can still use AI to direct it, right? But it's the actions can be taken directly with AutoHotkey or some other tool. When you don't know exactly what action should be taken, AI can help understand and kind of infer the logic and figure it out, and it's a great way to rethink what you're doing. So let's keep going here. WebView 2. Oh, cool. He's playing with WebView 2 tool. This deep learning, DeepL, it's a translation tool, and even though I didn't have a key, they have a free thing, and then I tried running it, and it said, oh, hey, use this other free endpoint instead of this one, and I went through there, and it comes back broken. So I wrote them and said, hey, I want to test your thing. Apparently it's very good at translations, but it also does them incredibly fast, and so we're trying to set it up where we do translations during a live webinar call, and be able to very instantly listen to what was said, spoken, transcribe it, and then translate it so we can have conversations with other people. Now, there's other tools out there that I think in 6 months, this will be moot because it'll be done. But it shouldn't be that hard for us to get this done, maybe a couple hours of work, as long as we can get the pieces kind of put together. So that's what that was. Looks like we were using my resizable GUI. That's a great function if you haven't played with that. Allows you to easily show up your results into a resizable GUI, so you don't have to recreate that over and over. The AI transcribe, I was playing with that. Man, that's a great tool. We haven't released it yet, because one of the biggest reason is right now I want to make sure we bring back in Claude for doing the summaries instead of ChatGPT, even though ChatGPT is amazing. And I probably could just say let's use the 4.0 model, because that one I think is on par, at least, maybe better in some ways than Claude and not in others. But Claude is just phenomenal, so I really like using Claude for that. And we started off using ChatGPT on that for Whisper, but Whisper was breaking for the transcription, so we switched over to Assembly AI for doing the transcriptions, which is a great tool. It's been working wonderful. But yeah, we haven't quite released that one yet. The transcribe media, it's really transcribe and summarize, and it's a really, really powerful tool. Clipboard history. So we had a hero call the other day showing both the auto suggester and clipboard history tool. Now, the clipboard history tool, clip history, we have a video on that. The auto suggester, there's no video, and maybe later today or tomorrow I'll record a video on it. We were patching a couple things and fixing it, but boy, those are really great tools to help you. You basically start typing, and if there's something in your clipboard history, and you can dictate whether I look back 15 minutes or an hour, 3 hours, 3 months. So it'll remember what's in your clipboard, because you can also search in it too, but as you type, it will start, you can have it offer up the things that you use, which is great. You can also have it look at the most recently used file paths, which is an open and save dialogues, which is really helpful because we use the same ones over and over. And why not have those where you can start typing and have it pre-populate that for you? The auto suggester is more about you give it a list of things, a list of words, a list of address, whatever you want, right? It's just a flat file with a list of text, and as you start typing, it will look at those and try to offer them for you and fulfill when you select it. Both are really, really great tools. We all literally should be using those things. They're phenomenal. And Clipster. So someone had an issue with Clipster, and actually during the hero call, we solved two things in the last week or so in the hero call that were really interesting. One was figuring out when someone stops typing, because often in the search field, you don't want to be doing your filtering while someone's typing usually, right? You want to wait till they stop. Sometimes you do, but most times you don't. Especially if you have a very big 200,000 list of things you're querying across, so if you don't want to be hitting that every keystroke, right? But Isaias made a little timer, so when you start typing and you stop typing, it's detected watching for that, and then it submits a query without hitting an enter key or any sort of a key, right? A button. So that's really, really cool. So we actually added that, I think, to a couple of our tools already, but we should be using that elsewhere. The other one was like an auto sleep adjuster, because like in Clipster, what was happening was on someone's computer, it was not waiting long enough after you paste to restore the clipboard, and that ends up inverting it because the control itself has to wait for you to take action, right? And then you gotta restore it after. We've documented this several times. It's not a bug. It's a Windows thing and just how programs work. So what we realized was, what if we were like getting an idea of how tasked the CPU is, and we could adjust dynamically that sleep. So sometimes it may be shorter if your computer's not tasked with a lot of stuff, and sometimes it would be longer if you're doing a lot of things, right? So Isaias wrote a little script. We were testing it. It seems to work great. We're going to have to do a little more playing with it, but we're going to create that into a function that we can just share and basically have an auto-adjust sleep timer, which I think is really, really cool, right? So that way, and what we'll do is we'll say, hey, if you give it the time, sleep that long, but if you don't give it time, it's one of those things where maybe you put it as 0. 0 would mean auto-adjust, something like that, right? Because that's really cool, because we try not to use sleeps, but sometimes you just have to, right? It's rare for us. And that's when, if you get around using just keystrokes and things, you don't run into it nearly as often. So we usually use COM or UIA to automate programs with AutoHotkey. And there's a lot of other approaches. We now have a 20th approach that Windows RT is the 20th way to automate programs with AutoHotkey. But, and look, here's the WinRT right there. We're using UIA. We were trying to use Pushbullet, and we think we understand why it was getting blocked. But Pushbullet's great because if you have an Android phone, you can automate text through it. And it costs like $40 a year. Well, for some reason, the client couldn't load that page at their work. Not just the page, but even do anything with Pushbullet. So we ended up automating phone link directly with UIA. And for what we're doing, it's okay. It's still not ideal. I don't love automating with UIA for a lot of things when you're doing really complex things. But I think for this purpose, we're just putting a phone number and then doing a mail merge to dump in the message to go to that person, and looping over, like, let's say 35, 40 clients. And that one we have a sleep in between, because the Android phone has to actually deploy the message, and that takes sometimes a few seconds. So we usually add, like, let's say 5 to 10 seconds, depending on your phone and how good the connection is. So it will automate sending out those texts, which is really cool. AJ, a buddy of mine, was having a problem with his hotkeys are not working, and we've talked about this before, and he doesn't have Power Toys installed and this and that, so he was still having a problem. I said, okay, well, let's do something dumb, and I showed him how I made this simple script for him. The example he had was V1, so I wrote it in V1, and yes, I coded this, so don't use it. No, but what we did was we put a sleep. Actually, Irfan helped me with this, now that I think about it, so I didn't code this. But we put a sleep timer of 5. You can say how many minutes you want, and this way it's in a variable, right? So you can just pick how many minutes. And what it'll do is, let's just jump into it first. It will force a restart of whatever scripts you're giving it. Now, you could put in exe, but if it has a GUI, and some of your scripts might have a GUI, those are going to pop up, right? So you have to remember that. But what we're doing is we're just triggering a restart every 5 minutes. And this right here, to the default action, I added that later, was if you click it, or I think double click the system tray icon, it will force the restart right then in case you needed that. But it's a dumb solution because we're not sure why his hotkeys just stop working randomly throughout the day. And I arbitrarily picked 5 minutes. You might make it sooner, you might make it longer, depending on what you're doing. But hey, it seems to be fixing his problem. So there's that. But I wish we could figure out what's actually going on. And let's see if there's user finished typing. Here's that script, which we'll at some point make as a download. You can check it out here, though. And in these times were, I think, somewhat arbitrary, but we probably should put them in as a variable, and then we can adjust them easier, But yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. We've still, like I said, we've been really, really busy with client work, so we haven't been making as many scripts for the public lately. If you want to, especially just brainstorm on how you might use AI at work or create a custom tool for you, with the libraries we have, it makes it much more cost efficient to do that. And also, we are considering starting an AI group, just so it's like the hero group, but it'll be really focused just on AI. We'll probably be covering Python a lot more in that group, and using AutoHotkey as well, obviously, if we want to run it locally. Python's great if you want to have something run on a server, or run cross-platform, or run also multi-threaded, because that's built into Python. AutoHotkey is single-threaded, but AutoHotkey also is great for connecting to the Windows APIs and triggering things. And of course, you can actually use Python within AutoHotkey and AutoHotkey within Python. So we might blend the two depending on what our goal is. But anyway, we have a hero. We're considering starting an AI group. That'd be similar to the hero group. Probably meet once a week to start, to see how many members are actually interested. And we'll have a private Telegram group for that as well. And we'll talk through, ideas around using AI, how to implement them, where people are getting stuck, which is the best model. As Zayas was talking the other day, it's like, for everything we do, we should really be considering which model should we be using for doing that one thing, right? Because a general model is great in overall, but when you are doing more and more specific things, a different model will probably perform better on a very specific task. So it's and as long as we have a library, that's where using Python, it becomes much easier, because most of the AI tools out there are built, and they already have a dev kit built for using Python for interacting with their tool, which saves you a lot of development time, right? So, hope you enjoyed that. Please like the video if you learned something. It really helps us out. Don't forget, our courses are available, and we're going to be having a Black Friday sale this Friday, so watch for an email on Friday on a Black Friday sale. So if you're interested in purchasing a course or some tutoring or something, I think I threw that in there as well. We have, I think it's a 40% discount. So don't forget, our courses have a 200% money back guarantee. Have a great day. Cheers.